Hello and welcome to a new Scale 500 news video here on the channel, or should I say reaction summary video on the very recent Helpless live stream they did over on Instagram. Now in the past Herpa has done quite a few of these live streams, and what they usually tackle in these live streams are, apart from some maybe burning questions the community has for them, is really to take in suggestions for models. They give answers to if they are likely or not to happen, maybe they're already working on it or not, and so on and so on. But for this live stream they have changed the concept a little bit, and they didn't take any model suggestions. They did mention what people could do with model suggestions if they had them. I will also get to that in this video, but their focus in this live stream was really trying to give in-depth answers to burning questions from the community. Now the live stream was mostly in German, and contrary to the belief of some people from Wings 900, I do actually speak German, so I could understand all the answers, and therefore some of the answers were only given in German. I will replay you those, but I will translate it for you, so don't worry, you will get the gist of everything here. So the very first topic was actually one of the few questions they picked from me, and that was regarding quality. Because in the last live stream of Helpless, the product wings manager said that they had done their homework and they had seen improvements now in production regarding quality. Now, since that live stream, what we have experienced is, of course, a nosediving quality, and frankly, we really don't know what kind of homework they have done. So I asked them. Here is what they had to say.
Immer schwer, das allgemein, ich finde es schade, dass das so rüberkommt, und müssen wir sicherlich an einzelnen Beispielen sagen. Allgemein kann man das nicht sagen. Ich hoffe schon, dass da sehr viele Modelle dabei sind, die nicht zu bemängeln sind. Qualität im Sturzflug, weiß nicht, wir haben natürlich einzelne Ausreißer, wo Menschen arbeiten, passieren Sachen.
So, yeah, it's quite frustrating in a sense, because his answer, he himself says that he doesn't want to go into specifics. That's why he's there. That's what he should be doing. But he says they have, so he wasn't really happy about me saying that their quality had nosedived. He didn't really agree on that. He said whether humans working mistakes will happen. True. The question is the amount of mistakes. That's always been the issue with Helpless. He says they have worked out issues in the production, and that if there are mistakes with models, it's only a few of them. Now, if I look back at my reviews in the last few weeks or months from Helpless models, I don't remember one where I didn't have at least one major issue. So my experience is definitely very much on the contrary. He said that they had solved the issue with glue. They had apparently changed glue, and that had led to some issues with models that were coming apart. Now also here I would say that is most definitely something we still experience. I don't see an improvement here. And then he also finished off with that, of course, saying that they don't want people to have this experience. They want people to enjoy the hobby and not be annoyed when they receive their models. Unfortunately, I think for far too many that is still the case. But let's move on to the next topic that was discussed, because we remain in the realm of quality. Now, two of the biggest offenders in terms of lacking quality of recent releases must be the Norwegian 737 MAX 8 and the TUI Fly in the 50-year anniversary livery of that airline. They started off with the Norwegian. Let's see what they had to say about that.
Yeah, the thing is, production noticed that the emergency exit markings above the wings were a little bit too crooked for their taste, and then they decided to correct it by printing. It's not a decal, I heard that also, but printing over those doors. That caused a little, that caused that thick rectangular shape on the wing, not on the wing, but on the fuselage, and then printed over it. You will never get a printing color to be the exact same color as a spray painted color. And that is something that we unfortunately did not notice, was not discussed with us. And yeah, what can I say? It's the way it is. We talked with the production people, with the QC people about it, and will definitely not happen again.
I mean, it baffles me because the explanation I can understand. They recognized there was something wrong with the base print, so they printed on top of it. But they don't come to the conclusion that that is not the way to solve it. Like, that they still sell this model at full price and without any note. I really just struggle to find words here, because how can they? Why? Why would they sell the model like this? If they actually know that there's this issue, why would they sell it? And I think I was not the only one really frustrated with this answer. So there was a follow-up question that was given in German. Again, I will translate it just afterwards.
Es kommt darauf an, wie man draufschaut auf dem Modell. Wenn ich mir das jetzt wirklich hier so hinstelle und dann fällt es nicht auf. Habe ich es in einem gewissen Licht, so wir haben es auch natürlich auch fotografiert, dann sieht man das sehr deutlich. Und dann plötzlich sieht man nicht mehr anders. Da ist es so, die Modelle kommen an, wenn geguckt, ist alles dran, ist alles irgendwas beschädigt, und dann wird es meistens schon auch unter Zeitdruck, muss man dazu auch sagen, dass wir durch die logistische Situation auch gucken müssen, dass eine Qualitätsprüfung ganz am Ende besteht darin, dass die Modelle ganz sind, nichts beschädigt ist, und dann muss das letzten Endes weitergehen in der logistischen Kette.
I'm sorry, I have to jump in here because it's just insane. So again, they recognize that the question is, of course, why would you sell the model as is when you know there's a mistake? And his first answer is, I mean, if you place the model just in front of you, you will not notice it. It's just if you look closely or under a specific light, which is an insane statement on its own. But what comes afterwards is, I think, even more interesting, because it's quite telling. Because what he says is, so basically you have to consider the model is coming out of the factory. There might be some quality control there. They saw there was an issue. They tried to fix it in the worst possible way. Then they send it to Herpa. And once it's been shipped off to Herpa, their quality control in Dietenhofen is basically just, well, does the model have all the parts? If yes, it's shipped off. They have time pressure. The models just need to go out. They don't care anymore. It's super frustrating because, like, again, as I say, they have no problem in shipping out these models at full price without any note, even though they know there's a mistake. And I mean, this is clearly not the way to fix this model. But there was also then another follow-up question, which then went into the TUI Fly 50 anniversary livery, because of course that is also quite the terrible model.
Aber genau die beiden mit Norwegian, beide Sachen, beide Negativbeispiele. Die TUI ist ein wahnsinnig kompliziertes Design durch diese Dreiteilung, und zum Teil wird es schabloniert, zum Teil lackiert, zum Teil bedruckt, und das muss dann alles zusammengefügt werden. Das ist in der Größenordnung wirklich sehr kompliziert. Würden wir das ein paar Stufen größer machen, wäre das sicherlich schön. Wir werden uns das auch nochmal angucken, haben auch da bereits mit der Produktion nochmal gesprochen, dass einfach gewisse Toleranzen nochmal nachgeschärft und reduziert werden müssen.
He immediately recognizes that, of course, the Norwegian and the TUI Fly are probably the worst offenders that we've seen recently, although by no means the only ones. He talks about the various different printing techniques needed in order to get this livery onto a Scale 500 aircraft model, and that on basically so little space, because it is a tiny little model, applying all these different types of printing techniques is very complicated. And if the model had been bigger, if it had been a bigger scale, it would be easier to apply these various printing techniques next to each other. Now, I will give them that, but we have seen other complicated liveries also from Herpa Wings in the past on scale 500 models, where they have been able to execute these things without the issues we see on the Toy Fly. So honestly speaking, I'm still not happy about this because, as I said, we have seen similar printing techniques, similar complicated liveries in the past where they have executed it better. So the nose-diving quality we have seen with models, and also applies to this one, I think is down to cost cutting and trying to cut corners wherever possible. Probably also exacerbated by the various printing techniques needed. It then just shows even more than maybe on other models. But again, you just cannot release a model in that state. And they do it because they don't care. Once they have the models from China, they ship them out. It's pretty much, I mean, as long as they're not completely fallen apart, they are shipped out. And the rest doesn't matter because they have sold the models, they have gotten their money. And apparently they don't care about the damage they do to their brand and the Scale 500 community overall. Now, the next topic, again, in the realm of quality and quality control and lack of that, is of course, we have in a very recent time experienced more and more aircraft models with very flat wings, where the wings have been mounted at almost a 90-degree angle. Now, I would of course expect, and maybe I'm unreasonable, correct me if I am unreasonable, write it in the comment section down below if you think so, but I would expect that if there is a known issue that the community has been talking about for weeks, if not months now, that the Wings product manager would know about this issue. So they were asked about these wings and what they had to say about that. Let's listen.
That is, I mean, I've heard that we have way too positive wing angles in the past. I would need an example of that, please, just to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. Maybe that'll come up later.
Well, it did come up later. I am sure there were others as well, but I did several times write in at least the aircraft types that I was sure about were affected by the issue. That's the 777, that's the A350, that's the A320, the A321. They're all affected by the way too flat wings. Now, it is true, his statement at the beginning, that in the past there has been issues with some models where the wings were bending up quite too much upwards. But for me, this is just this typical answer we get from Herpa, and especially from the product manager when there are issues. The initial reaction is like, oh, I don't know about that. Give me some examples. When the examples are then brought up, they're not picked up, and therefore the topic just is not further discussed. I don't believe that the Wings product manager does not know about these issues. But if you take the question, bravo, you took the question, but then please answer it and don't give us this, because that is such a non-answer. And if you really don't know, then the situation is much worse than I thought. All right, moving on from the whole quality issue thing, there was questions regarding prices. Now, Herpa has, of course, in the past had quite the exuberant price increases. For the beginning of the year, it seemed like prices were going to be stable, and that was also the message coming from the Wings product manager, Stefan Kögen, that they wanted to have more stable prices going forward and didn't foresee any price increases. Now, unfortunately, with the latest release batch, we have seen price increases. The A380, granted, has risen with only €1, which, if we look from the period of the last A380 Emirates to the next Emirates A380 that is coming now, the price increase of €1 is below inflation. But, I mean, that is a statistic you can look at many ways, because, I mean, yes, if you only look at this time period, it would be below. But if, of course, go a little bit further back and see how has the price development in general been for Herpa Wings products, then they are definitely above normal inflation. We have the latest 747 now that is coming out, the Asiana Cargo 747-400, now at €50. The last 747 that was announced or released was at 45 euros. So there we have a price increase of 5 euros. And we have seen many of the other aircraft types all being pushed up to the 40 euro mark. But let's hear what Helper Wings had to say about price increases.
Preiserhöhung haben wir eigentlich jetzt nicht mehr gemacht. Deswegen, es kommt immer wieder auf, Preise, wir verstehen, dass die Preise hoch sind. Erhöht haben wir sie jetzt zum Beispiel dieses Jahr gar nicht. Das nur so von wegen, wir wollten ja eine gewisse Preisstabilität schaffen. Wir waren in der Vergangenheit gezwungen dazu. Wir haben dann irgendwann ja auch gesehen, dass dann gewisse Preise, sei es Rohstoffe, Bezugsmaterialien, Personalkosten, einfach nicht wieder runtergehen. Deswegen mussten wir sehr zeitverlagert, sehr spät Kosten erhöhen, teils deutlich, teils lag das aber auch an Lizenzgebühren, die wir abführen müssen.
So he starts off by saying there are no price increases. That is factual not correct, as I've just mentioned before. Then he goes into, no, I mean, yeah, we had the big price increases 22, 23, but we've kept the prices stable this year, and we had to increase prices in the past because there were increasing costs, and we had to pass them on at some point. The latter part, all valid, but starting off the statement with there are no price increases, that is a bold statement when we have just seen price increases. So he was obviously pressed on that because, yeah, no one really bought that explanation. And then he started actually mentioning, yes, there was a little bit of an adjustment with the A380 and so on and so on. So there are price increases. He knows it, and eventually he did recognize it. Not in this answer though. But then he also went into the topic of competition.
So the question about our newest competitor, Aether Models, thoughts?
I had a few thoughts about that before. I don't want to, we don't, up till now, there is no competition because there's nothing on the market. The things are being announced. We'll have to see what the actual quality is, how their sales are, where they're sold, where they can appear. Because one thing that, always gets you, should surprise or wake up a few people if there's also no website. For us currently, we'll just have to wait and see what they do. We see some announcements, some that we for sure know that they are completely unlicensed, which is not fair and not legal. And we have nothing against competition. I think nobody has anything against competition because it just makes it more interesting for the consumer, for you, for the collector, and that's a good thing. Because if you just have one company, that's the worst you can have for a market, actually. But if there's competition, it has to be a fair competition on the same level. I don't want to talk too much about licensing all the time, but it is a huge factor for us, a very expensive factor for us. We pay 6-digit sums every year, and if a company just thinks they can do whatever they want, that's not fair competition.
They always love to state, oh, we are so poor, we have to pay huge 6-digit figures on licenses, and the others, they don't have to do that. That's unfair. Now, the truth is that, of course, there are some models, there are some companies that operate completely outside of licensing and the law, but it's by far not everything. I mean, you have many models coming out of China from Chinese competition that is fully licensed. You have models that are half licensed. You have models that are unlicensed. But also Helper doesn't need to have licenses with everything they release. That is something they always forget to talk about. They always paint this picture that Helper can only do stuff with everything licensed. Now, when it comes to Airbus and Boeing, so the aircraft manufacturers, that has to be licensed, by the way, and that is what is mostly also licensed from most Chinese factories or Chinese companies. Then there's the question regarding licenses for the airlines, and that is completely open. Some airlines insist on it, some airlines couldn't care less. And that's not just for Chinese companies, it's the same picture for Helper. So it is really their favorite thing to paint black and white. We are the good ones, they are the bad ones, and that's not how the real world works. But they were asked about it, so let's hear what they had to say about it.
Es gibt Lizenzverträge und es gibt Verträge. Wir müssen nicht an zum Beispiel an alle Hersteller dieser Welt Lizenzgebühren zahlen. Wir haben aber Verträge mit denen zu anderen Bedingungen. Aber zum Beispiel für Airbus, alles was wir Airbus machen, alles was wir an Boeing machen, alles was wir Lockheed machen, Northrop Grumman, Cessna, Textron, Douglas gehört zu Boeing. Dafür zahlen wir Lizenzen.
So he's just listing up all the various aircraft manufacturers and that they have to pay licensing fees for that. Before that, he says that, yeah, there are the differences between licenses or just legal agreements, and not all airlines are the same here. But as I just said, the license agreement with the airline manufacturers, most models coming out of China are covered in that license. In that perspective, most of your competition, regardless of scale, is no different to you here. The difference is with the other licenses. That's with the agreements with airlines. And as I said, there some airlines absolutely want to have a license agreement and do not allow anything without, and other airlines couldn't care less. So again, very black and white painting from Hyperwings, as we are used to. I agree that, of course, in an ideal world, it should be a level playing field. But when has the world been ideal? And honestly speaking, there wouldn't be a market for model, and again, regardless of what scale, if we're talking 500, 400 or 200, there wouldn't be a market for unlicensed products if the demand for these products had been met. And whether it is a company like Herpa or any other company that is not able to get these licenses, either because they're incompetent or because the companies giving the licenses are too greedy, the result is the same. The demand is still there for these kind of models. And if the demand is not met at a reasonable level, well, then people will find a way to satisfy that demand elsewhere. And that is then with unlicensed products. Is that fair? I don't know, but is it fair that collectors have been begging for certain models for 5, 10, 15, 20 years? I don't think that's fair either. So if you have a disagreement with the way some people are doing business, maybe the issue is not so much these companies that they exist, but the issue is that there is a demand that is not being met, and that is what you should be working on. Now, the final topic I would like to highlight was regarding boxes. It is a never-ending story with Herpa's really terrible box design, but let's hear what they have to say about the boxes from Hyperwings this time around, if they are willing to change.
The poor box design, I think, is really just, sorry that you feel that way. There are reasons for the box design. I think we've explained that a lot of times. We have a brand and we want to protect that brand. We want to make sure that the appearance of that brand is stable, and we don't change things every couple of weeks or months just because a fad is going this way or that way. We have a lot of things to consider with the packaging. We want to transport our brand with it. We want an appearance. If you, a few of you had a chance to come here to our open house day, and if you look at the store there, down there, we have a big store. It's really neat to see how clean that appearance is, and that is for a brand also something very, very important. And we are looking into it, as I mentioned, but that is something we will not just change overnight. That is something we really have to consider, and if we make a change, it's something that has to hold up for several years to come. And we also have to consider a lot of things with the packaging, also with the design. We have licensors who have certain requirements concerning their logo positioning, logo size, logo color combinations, whatever. That's all something that has to go in there. So I say that in German. Nothing is basically. It's not going to be this way for the next 20 years. No brand stays that way for 20 years. But it's really something that we need to put into a lot of thought before we make a final decision, because that decision has to last for a few years to come.
Yeah. So basically, they're not going to change because they actually believe that their box is good. He was also answering this in German before that, where he also went into the whole thing that new customers, they don't know what they're buying if they can't see it, so they need to have these cutouts, and they can't go back to the old box design with images because airlines then wouldn't approve these images, and that might absolutely be right. I don't necessarily see them having to go back to the old box design with images of aircraft if that's too complicated, but surely what we have now, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I mean, I know that I have been saying this for years now, and I'm quite vocal about it, but I know also that I'm by far not the only one in the community really depressed about these boxes. And the fact that no other die-cast manufacturer out there has this box design doesn't mean that you have found the one box design that actually works. It should tell you, wait a minute, we are the only ones doing it differently from everyone else. Maybe we are wrong, but my God, please stop making your box design for once in a lifetime customers going through an airport, randomly picking out a product they have no clue about. Listen to your core customer base and change your boxes. All right, but those were the, I think, most pressing issues that were discussed in the live stream. But there were a few other topics, of course, also, which I will go through as quickly as possible so the video doesn't get too long. There was a question regarding where they're actually selling most models in the wings department. And of course, the largest customer bases they have and the focus markets for them are Europe, North America, and East Asia, where 50 to 60% of their sales are taking place in Europe. Then there was, of course, the whole topic standard livery versus special liveries, particularly picked up on the Austrian A320 that has been recently released or announced, where Herpa, of course, has chosen the Yes to Europe livery instead of a standard livery. Herpa has been begged for many, many years from collectors to please give us a standard livery single aisle Austrian Airlines aircraft model. They're finally coming with a single aisle, and then it's a special livery. It has disappointed quite many, especially also because the Yes to Europe on the Austrian Airlines aircraft model is actually not flying around anymore. Herpa knows they are very late to the party, but their argument is they just want to complete the Yes to Europe collection, even though it is very unlikely that they will make the missing Brussels Airlines model. But yeah, that took precedence over actually fulfilling the wishes of the community. And that ties into another topic that was brought up, because they were actually asked, why are you constantly producing brand new models and producing past demand? In the sense that just did that also with the Austrian model, producing past demand. But of course, they have made many classic airliners. There's nothing wrong with that. There is a community, there is a customer base for classic airliners. But specifically with Braniff, that is an airline that is extremely oversaturated, and Herpa still insists on that these models sell. And I'm very sorry, but we can clearly see the opposite. Now, they might sell for Herpa, but even that is wrong. But of course, they are selling it to retailers, and we can see these models laying around with retailers for years. They cannot get rid of them. But I also doubt that they actually have good sales at Herpa, because when you, for example, go to an open day event like I did this year from Herpa Wings, what do you find there? Braniff models. They have plenty of models there that just have not sold. They still had the two Braniff BAC 111 models laying around. That should tell you something, how terrible the Braniff sales must be, and yet they continue to produce these models en masse. Now, another topic was, of course, the Eurowings Yes to Europe, which is one of the other Yes to Europe models that they have recently brought out as a club model. And that club model does not have the usual amount of details that club models have. Club models tend to have more printed details than standard models. That has been one of the few things really putting them setting them apart from standard models. But this Eurowings Yes to Europe model has the same amount of details as any standard model, which is not a lot. And people have rightly been asking them, how can that be a club model if it doesn't even come with more details? And I mean, apart from the initial response, it is a club model because it is a club model, they actually started going into that they were kind of figuring out now what they wanted to do with these club models, if they actually should have more details. My prediction is club models in the future will not have more printed details anymore. They will just be club models because they are club models. Yeah. Then, of course, there were some issues with the latest Lufthansa A340-600. A couple of years ago, Herpa released a Lufthansa A340-600 in the new Lufthansa livery. Now they have made a re-release. And with Lufthansa models, as with many other models, when Herpa announces them, they show these line graphs. Now, they should not be taken at face value because often what we see on these graphs does not really reflect what the final product will be. Specifically with line graphs of Lufthansa models, they always tend to have way more printed or way more details in the graphics than the final product. And that is, of course, also the case here. Now, some people have, of course, been saying, well, I mean, I expected more printed details on the aircraft model because that's what you showed me in the graphs, and that's not on the aircraft model. Herpa insists that there are more printed details on the new release compared to the old release. It's a big mess. The reality is the model does of course not have the amount of detailing we see on the graphics, and some details that the last A340-600 had have been removed, but then be replaced with other details. In the end, honestly speaking, don't buy the model, it's not worth the money. Then there was some comments around the front landing gear of the A320 family, which of course is massively oversized, and in the beginning Herpa was coming with the usual, oh, but I mean, we have to look into it, and in the past we used some plastics and blah, blah, blah. There was a really good comment from someone where even the product manager had to say, okay, I have to take that point. And that is, of course, that if the landing gear of the 777 is smaller than the landing gear on the A320, then it must be possible to make the landing gear of the A320 smaller. And yeah, even the product manager had to take that point and say, yeah, okay, I see that. Then the final thing from this live stream, and that is how do collectors, how do people from the community in the future make model suggestions if they want to keep this format for the live stream going more in depth with larger questions from the community instead of taking model suggestions and talking about those. Well, you can write to Herpa Wings. You can send them an email at herpa@herpa.de. That is where they want people to send their suggestions. Don't expect an answer. I mean, to be fair, I think any right-thinking person would know that with the amount of emails that we get, especially with model suggestions, don't expect an answer. But this is where you can send them, and supposedly they will read them and take them into account in their planning going forward. So that's all the things I could draw from that live stream. What are your thoughts on these topics? Am I mean? Am I too harsh on Herpa Wings? If you think so, fair enough, then let me know in the comment section below. Do you agree with what I've said? Let me know in the comment section down below. Let's keep the discussion going there. With that, thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you soon again. I'm checking out, and bye. And don't forget to leave a like.